One of my favorite restaurants is the Commissary in New Paltz, and it's my favorite because they serve this soup called breakfast soup. And it's this huge noodle bowl full of flavor and greens and vegetables, and it's really good. If you ever make it to New Paltz, New York, I would definitely recommend it. So here's how to make it, and just to warn you, it will make you feel like a goddess. There are 3 steps to breakfast soup. One, you have to make the broth called dashi, which is a Japanese term for broth made out of kombu, the seaweed. To make the dashi the night before, pour 16 cups of water into a large pot. Next, you're gonna add some kombu, which is just some seaweed. Add it to your pot of water. I'm just doing about 4 to 5 sheets, and then we're gonna cover it and bring it to a boil. Once the dashi is boiling, lower the heat and simmer for 15 minutes. Then after your 15 minutes, remove from the heat and let it sit overnight. The next morning, take the kombu seaweed out of your dashi broth. Next, you can add some mushrooms. I'm putting in some freshly cut shiitake mushrooms and then also some dried oyster mushrooms. Next, we're going to cover the soup and bring it back to a boil. So after the broth has boiled, you're going to remove the pot from the heat, and then you're going to put some of the broth into a small container or bowl. And then you're gonna add about a tablespoon of miso and then stir it into the broth until it's dissolved. And then you're gonna add this mixture back into the broth and then stir it up until it's incorporated, and then keep doing that until it's as miso-y as you would like. I usually end up using about 3 tablespoons of miso. And then number 2, you have to decide what you want in your soup. I usually like to put noodles in my soup. I'm using Lotus Foods ramen noodles, but you can use any noodles that you so choose. Most noodles require that you boil them in order to cook them, but if you boil the broth again, then you'll lose a lot of the miso soup. So pre-cook them before you add them. I also like to add a lot of greens. I added spinach and bok choy to this soup, but you can use any green that you so choose. And then I also added potatoes cut into star shapes. You can use any starch you like or no starch at all, and you can cut them into fun shapes or just cut them normally and add them. And then I also added edamame. You could also use tofu. And then I also added wakame, which is a seaweed, and then I also added scallions. Step number 3 is you have to make a spice blend called Shichimi togarashi. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Traditionally, the spice blend has 7 different ingredients, but as you'll notice, I actually only have 5, but it still turns out delicious, so don't worry. For my spice blend, I added dried orange peel, and then I also added sesame seeds. I chose white sesame seeds, but you can also use black sesame seeds or a combination of black and white. And then I also used a bit of powdered ginger. I think actually dried ground up ginger would have been better, but it still worked. And then the same for the red chili pepper. I found some powdered at the grocery store at the Asian market near where I live, but ground up red chili pepper would have been a little bit better, but it was still delicious and it provided a punch of flavor. I also added dried nori. I blended it up in a food processor until it was into small pieces because you're going to end up adding that to the other spices. On the day that you want to make your soup, get a big bowl, pour some of the broth and the mushrooms into the bowl, and then add the pre-cooked noodles as well as all the greens and seaweed and whatever else you decided to put into your soup. And then you can put that either on the stove top or, like I did, just pop it into the microwave with a plate over it and then cook it for about 3 minutes just to heat it up. If you're using the stove, just make sure that you don't bring it to a boil, as that can get rid of the taste from the miso. And there you have your delicious breakfast soup, and just don't forget to serve or enjoy with your spice blend.